The sky above the desert was red with smoke. Ash fell like snow, and the ground was hot from the ship that had crashed just hours ago. Captain Jake moved carefully, his boots crunching on metal and bone. He was alone. His team had refused to follow him into the crash zone. The Galactic Alliance had marked the wreck as dangerous, but Jake had heard rumors. Something valuable was hidden inside. Maybe tech. Maybe someone still alive. Jake's rifle was ready, his visor scanning for movement. Dead alien bodies lay twisted and burned around the wreck. The ship had once been beautiful, silver and smooth, but now it was broken open like a crushed can dot. Suddenly, he froze. A sound dot. It was soft, weak, like a whimper or a cry. Not metal, not wind, something alive. Jake turned his head, listening carefully. He moved closer, past a pile of twisted steel beams. Then he heard it again, a cry, this time clearer. A voice, small, scared, and not human. Jake's heart beat faster. He moved quickly now, stepping over fallen wires and sharp glass. His scanner picked up a faint life signal, deep under some wreckage. He followed it, and then he saw it. A small cage, trapped under part of the broken ship. And inside someone. It was a girl. An alien girl. She was curled up in a tight ball. No clothes on her thin body, only dirt, bruises, and blood. Her arms hugged her legs, and she was shaking. Her eyes were closed, but tears rolled down her cheeks. Jake's throat went dry. She was not a soldier, not a prisoner of war. She looked too young, too broken. He knelt down and touched the cage bars. They were hot and covered in strange alien writing. The girl opened her eyes. They were bright violet, full of fear. When she saw Jake, she gasped and pressed herself back into the cage wall. She looked like she thought he was going to hurt her. "It's okay," Jake said, raising his hand slowly. "I won't hurt you." She didn't answer. She just stared. Jake tried to open the cage, but it was locked with alien tech. He pulled out his multi-tool and worked on the lock. Sparks flew, but the cage finally clicked open. The girl didn't move. Jake stepped back. "You're free," he said softly. Still, she didn't move. Then slowly, very slowly, she crawled out. Her legs were weak. She almost fell, but Jake caught her. She flinched at his touch and whispered something. Jake leaned closer. "What did you say?" Her lips trembled. She whispered again, "Don't hurt me." Jake felt something twist in his chest. "I won't," he said. "I promise." He looked around. The crash site was still burning, and the air smelled like death. He had to get her out of there. Jake picked her up gently. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Maybe weeks. She didn't fight. She just lay in his arms, silent tears still falling. He carried her back through the ruins, his rifle ready in case something or someone was still alive. They reached his ship, hidden behind a hill. Jake opened the hatch and laid her on a soft bench inside. He grabbed a blanket and covered her. Her eyes followed him, still scared. He gave her water. She drank slowly, her hands shaking. Jake sat beside her watching. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but no words came. "That's okay," Jake said. "You don't have to talk. Just rest. You're safe now." She looked at him again. This time, her eyes were still afraid, but also confused. Like she didn't understand why he was helping her. Jake stared out the window, back toward the wreckage. Who was she? Why was she locked in a cage? And who had put her there? He had many questions. But right now, only one thing mattered. She was alive, and he was not going to let her die. The medical scanner blinked red, then blinked again. Jake stared at the screen, confused. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. He had placed the alien girl on the medbed inside his ship and let the system scan her body. But now the machine was giving strange readings. It said her heart was not beating in a normal rhythm. and her brainwaves didn't match any known species in the database. Even worse, her body temperature was dropping fast. "She's dying," Jake said. But then she moved. Not much. Just. Her fingers twitching. Her chest rose and fell slowly, as if she were trapped between life and death. Jake touched her forehead. Cold. Too cold. He grabbed the heat blanket and wrapped it tightly around her. "Stay with me," he whispered. "The ship's I spoke. Warning. Subject classified as enemy species. Should be reported to the Alliance at once." Jake snapped. "Shut up." The AI paused. "Protocol." I said, "Shut up." The girl opened her eyes again. Not fully, just a little. Her violet eyes flickered with fear. She tried to speak, but her voice was a whisper. "Why are you helping me?" Jake looked at her, because no one else did. She stared at him like he was lying, like she didn't believe help could exist. Then she passed out again. Jake sat back, rubbing his face. He had rescued people before, but never like this. Not someone in a cage. Not someone who looked like she had been completely forgotten. Who was she? And why was the AI calling her an enemy species? Jake went back to the scanner. He checked her blood data. What he saw made him freeze. Her blood was not natural. It wasn't just red, it glowed faintly blue. Inside it, there were strange particles moving like tiny machines. Nanobots? No. Something even older. Something alive? Jake whispered. "What are you?" The computer couldn't explain. The tech inside her body was ancient, older than any race the Alliance knew, but it was healing her slowly, keeping her alive. That's why she hadn't died in the cage. That's why she was still breathing. Jake sat beside her and watched her sleep. She looked peaceful now, but her body told a different story. Scars on her back, bruises on her arms, and strange burn marks on her neck. As if someone had tried to erase her identity. Who would do this? And why leave her to die in a shipwreck? Suddenly, the ship's radar beeped. Jake turned to the screen. A patrol drone. He cursed. It was Alliance tech sweeping the crash site. Jake powered down the lights, made the ship go dark. Silent. The drone passed nearby, scanning. If it saw the girl, they would come for her. They would take her, or worse, kill her. Jake looked at her sleeping form. She had nothing, no home, no name, not even clothes when he found her. And now the Alliance might want her dead? He made a decision. No matter who she was, no matter what she had inside her, he was going to protect her, even if the whole galaxy turned against him. Asterisk. She didn't cry this time. She just stared at the floor, her eyes empty, as if all her tears had already been used. Jake placed a warm bowl of broth in front of her. She didn't touch it. "You need to eat," he said gently. The alien girl, still silent, still wrapped in his old flight blanket, looked at him like someone who didn't understand what kindness was. Jake sat across from her inside the small ship's cabin. The engines were quiet. The stars outside drifted by slowly. He waited, not with questions, just silence. Finally, after what felt like hours, she spoke. "My name is Celia." Her voice was soft and broken. Jake nodded. "Nice to meet you, Celia." She didn't smile. She looked down at her shaking hands. "Do you know what it feels like to be sold?" Jake's chest tightened. "I was taken from my world 2 years ago," she whispered. "My ship sent out a distress call, but no one came." Jake stayed quiet. "They stripped us, put numbers on us, told us we were property. I watched people I knew get auctioned off like animals." She blinked slowly. "They said I was too thin to be of use, so I was thrown into a storage cage, forgotten." Jake clenched his fists. Celia didn't stop. "Sometimes they opened the cage. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they beat me, just to hear me scream. I think I stopped being a person." Jake leaned forward. "You are a person, Celia." She looked up at him. Her eyes shimmered, but not with tears this time. With something colder. You're the first one to say that. The words hit Jake like a punch. He couldn't believe this was the same girl he had carried out of that cage. Barely alive, barely conscious. Now she was speaking. But each word felt like a scar. He stood up, trying to breathe. I should have gotten there sooner. She shook her head. No one ever came. You came. That's enough. Jake paced across the floor. The things they did to you. They need to pay. Celia blinked. You don't even know who they are. Jake turned. Then tell me. She hesitated. Then said something that made his blood run cold. They weren't just pirates. They were hired. Jake froze. Hired? By who? I don't know, she whispered. But they said something strange. What? They said my blood was too important to kill. They said I was worth more than the ship, more than all the others. Jake stared at her. He remembered the glowing blue blood from the medical scan, the nano-like cells, the strange, ancient patterns. She wasn't just a victim. She was something bigger, got something dangerous. Jake sat back down beside her. His voice was firm. You don't ever have to go back there. Not while I'm alive. Celia looked at him, confused again. Why? Are you helping me? Jake didn't answer right away. Finally he said, because I've seen evil. But I've never seen someone survive it the way you have. For the first time, her lip trembled. She looked away fast, but Jake saw it. The crack in her armor. The piece of her that still wanted to believe in good. Outside. The radar beeped again. Another alert. A signal. Jake checked the screen. His face went pale. His name was on a bounty list. And right beside his face was hers. Wanted. Alive. Reward. 1 million credits. Jake looked at her. Celia looked back. And suddenly, the silence between them wasn't just heavy. It was dangerous. Someone out there wanted her. Badly. And they now wanted him too. The first warning wasn't a sound. It was a feeling. Jake suddenly stood still in the hallway of his ship, his gut tightening like something was wrong, deeply wrong. Then the lights flickered. The security system gave a soft buzz. Motion detected. Rear airlock. He rushed to the control panel. His fingers tapped fast, pulling up the external camera feed. 3 shadows, black armor, no symbols. No lights. Just silent figures moving toward the ship like ghosts. Jake's face hardened. We've been found. He turned, but Celia was already standing in the hallway barefoot, wrapped in the blanket, staring at the screen with wide eyes. Her voice trembled. That's them. Jake grabbed his rifle and tossed her a small device. Stay in the medical bay. Lock the door. If I don't come back in 5 minutes, you run. Understand? She nodded slowly but didn't move. Jake moved quickly, disabling the ship's outer lights and powering down non-essential systems. He made the ship look like a dead shell, just another wreck. But he knew that wouldn't fool them. These men weren't here to check wreckage. They were here to take her, or kill them both. He moved to the rear hall, waited behind the wall, breath steady. His rifle aimed at the airlock door. Click. The outer lock opened. A hiss of air. Boots stepped inside. Jake waited for the perfect moment. 1 step, 2 steps. He struck. He fired the first shot into the knee of the closest attacker. The man dropped. With a scream, the second raised his weapon, but Jake was faster. A shot to the shoulder. The third ducked behind a wall and fired back. Laser bolts lighting up the hallway. Jake took cover. Heart racing. The fallen soldier groaned, trying to crawl. Jake grabbed him by the armor and snarled, "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "She's not supposed to live." Jake's fist slammed into the helmet. He turned back, but the third intruder was gone. Disappeared. Then crash. The front of the ship. A flash. An explosion. They were trying to breach from the other side too. Jake ran, calling out, "Celia!" They're inside. But before he reached her, he froze. She was already there, standing over the second fallen attacker, in her hand, one of their weapons. It trembled, but she held it. Her eyes were glowing faintly. Celia, Jake said carefully. What did you do? I didn't run, she said. I remembered who I used to be. Jake stared at her. This fragile girl now standing tall, even in bare feet and wrapped cloth. She stepped forward. They said I was a weapon. Maybe it's time I learn why. Suddenly, the last attacker's voice echoed through the ship. You don't understand what she is, human. If she survives, the Empire falls. Jake aimed his rifle toward the sound. Then I guess it's already falling. He fired. Silence returned. Only the soft sound of Celia breathing remained. Jake looked at her again. This girl wasn't just someone to protect. She was the storm. And the galaxy had just felt its first rumble. She didn't bleed like normal people. Jake stared at the blood on his hand, bright blue, glowing faintly like liquid starlight. It had dripped from a scratch on Celia's arm after the fight. But the wound was already closing, healing too fast. He had seen battlefield med gels work before, but this wasn't medicine. This was her. Celia. He said softly, what are you? She looked at her arm and then at him. Her eyes didn't blink. She finally spoke. I'm not sure anymore. They sat in the cockpit, silent except for the hum of the ship's power core. Jake studied her, noticing things he had missed before. How her eyes had tiny glowing rings inside the pupils. How her skin shimmered under certain lights. How she didn't seem to breathe the same way as humans. He opened the scan results on the monitor. What? He saw chilled him. Her body had artificial cells, tiny ones, hidden in her blood, organs, and even her brain. But they weren't machines. They were living technology. Jake leaned back slowly. You're not just a girl, you're a weapon. Celia looked down. My father was a scientist. He worked on a project the Empire wanted to erase. Jake narrowed his eyes. What kind of project? Celia hesitated, then said something he didn't expect. Immortality. Jake froze. He believed he could make a body that would never grow old. That could heal from anything. A body strong enough to survive space, war, even death. Jake asked. And he used you? No, she said. I volunteered. She looked at Jake with quiet sadness. I wanted to help my people. I believed in him. But the Empire didn't, she continued. They said it was dangerous, illegal. They called it unnatural evolution. So they sent soldiers. They burned our labs. Killed everyone. Her voice cracked. He made me run. He hid me in a small ship and launched me into deep space. Jake remembered the crashed ship, the cage, the pirates. She had never made it to safety. Celia whispered, they found me before I could escape the system. Pirates, bounty hunters. And then the cage. Jake stood up. That's why they want you. So badly. You're proof. You're living proof that your father's work succeeded. She nodded. If someone unlocks the full design inside me, they could create an army. Jake clenched his fists. And if the Empire gets it first, they'll use it to rule forever, she finished. He looked at her, this fragile, haunted girl, who had survived cages, pain, and fear. And now, he saw her fully, not broken, not weak, but dangerous. And valuable. Maybe the most valuable being in the galaxy. He sat down beside her again, his voice low. You still want to live? She looked surprised. I don't know. Jake leaned closer. Then decide now. Because if we keep running, they'll never stop. But if we fight, we make them afraid for once. Celia stared at him. Then, slowly, her lips moved into something close to a smile. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Jake nodded. Good, because you're not a prisoner now. He picked up the ship's nav controller and tapped in new coordinates. Where are we going? She asked. He smiled slightly. To the one place the Empire doesn't want us to go. Where? Jake's eyes hardened. To your father's lab. Asterisk, the stars looked peaceful, but Jake knew peace was a lie. Their ship, the Emberlight, was speeding through deep space, cutting across quiet sectors and dark wormholes. But behind them, warships were coming. Faster than expected, Celia stood at the window, staring out at the stars. Her reflection looked calm, but her fingers were clenched, shaking. Jake was in the pilot's seat, flipping switches, locking in new jump coordinates. They're tracking our jumps, he muttered. Somehow they're reading the pulse trail. That's old tech, not Empire. Celia turned. Then who is it? Jake looked at her. Someone who wants you more than the Empire does. She sat beside him, holding her breath. There's no one left who wants me. Jake glanced at her. I do. She blinked, stunned. But there was no time for feelings now. The warning lights flashed red. Enemy ship approaching. Jake cursed and pulled the ship into a sharp turn. The gravity shook. Celia grabbed the seat tightly. We can't outrun them forever, she said. Jake didn't answer. He was thinking. Then his eyes lit up. There's a smuggler's belt near Theta 9. A broken mining field, old rocks, cold tunnels. We can hide. He locked in the course. The ship jumped. Outside, the stars stretched into lines. Then they snapped. Back. Darkness. They arrived in the middle of a forgotten asteroid field. Dead ships floated like bones. Cold, hollow. A graveyard of smugglers. Jake powered down the ship. Stealth mode. We'll drift. Celia looked around. It's quiet here. Too quiet, Jake said. But they won't find us easily. He stood and walked toward the ship's lower deck. Celia followed. In the storage room, Jake opened a locker. Inside was a hidden suit, metallic, flexible, old but strong. He held it up. This was my command armor back when I still believed in the Alliance. Celia tilted her head. You don't believe anymore? Jake shook his head. Not after what they did to planets like yours. He handed her a folded device. And this is for you. She opened it. A survival suit, lightweight, but with protection and cloaking tech. Why are you giving this to me? She asked. Jake looked at her seriously. Because we're not running anymore. Celia stared at the suit, then slowly nodded. She was done. Being helpless. Done being hunted. Done being quiet. She stepped into the small locker room and changed. When she came out, Jake couldn't speak for a moment. She looked different. No longer the girl he found in the cage. She looked like a survivor. Like someone ready to fight. Then the radar screamed. They both turned to the screen. Multiple ships, a fleet. Too many, Jake said. That's not Empire. That's mercenaries. Celia's eyes narrowed. They found us. Jake opened the weapon systems. Then we hold them off. He paused, looking at her. Unless you want to run. She stepped beside him, eyes glowing faintly. No, she said. Let them come. Outside, the stars were no longer peaceful. They were preparing for war. The ship was on fire. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed. And blood ran down Jake's arm. But he didn't stop. He limped through the broken hallway of the Emberlight, dragging a power cable behind him. One more connection. One more chance. In the control room, Celia stood over the main console. Her hands moved fast, too fast for any normal being. Her eyes were glowing brighter than ever now. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Behind them, the enemy fleet surrounded the asteroid. Lights blinked. Weapons charged. Jake slammed the last cable into place. Now, Celia, it's all yours. She didn't hesitate. She touched the console, and everything changed. The ancient tech inside her, the living system in her blood, lit up. The ship glowed from inside. Symbols crawled across the screen, symbols even Jake couldn't read. And then a pulse went out. A silent wave, invisible but unstoppable. Every enemy ship paused. Froze. Then shut down. One by one, their lights went black. Engines died. Cannons powered down. The fleet was dead in space. Jake stared in shock. What did you do? Celia breathed heavily, her voice calm. I took away their power. I woke the system my father hid inside me, the real secret. Jake stepped closer. That wasn't a weapon. She shook her head. It was balance, control, the ability to shut down any tech connected to the Empire's signal. Jake whispered, "You're the key to ending the war." She looked at him, eyes wide. Then what now? He reached out, touched her shoulder gently. Now you live. She stared at him for a long time. Then finally Celia cried, but not like before. These weren't the tears of a prisoner, not the tears of pain or fear. They were the tears of freedom. For the first time in years, she had control of her own future. No cage, no chains, just stars. And one human who never gave up on her. Jake looked at her, smiling softly. You're free now. She nodded slowly, but then she looked up. Come with me, she said. Don't let me walk this future alone. Jake smiled wider. He took her hand. And together, they stepped forward into the stars, into the unknown. Not as prisoner and savior, but as equals. As survivors, and maybe, just maybe, as the beginning of something new.